I think domestic factors play a very important role in Turkish-Israeli relations, but also regional dynamics are essential. I want to talk about a little bit about the 1990s and how Turkey's foreign policy has been transformed. In the 1990s, Turkey looked at the region and its immediate neighborhood through the lens of security, because Turkish military was the major actor in foreign policy making and in domestic politics as well. So the military, being the major actor in foreign policy making, identified two threats against Turkey. First, Kurdish separatism, and second, Islamic radicalism. And these two threats were fed by two external actors, Syria and Iran. And in the 1990s, Syria hosted the PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan. And Iran also used the PKK card against the Turkey's secular establishment. And Turkey also feared that Iran might help or support the radical Islamist movements in Turkey. And domestically, in the 1990s, the PKK was carrying out attacks in big cities in Turkey. And the Kurdish autonomy in northern Iraq posed a challenge to Turkey. So Turkish military saw alliance with Israel as an important step to counterbalance Iran and Syria. So this was the 1990s, and today we face a completely different geostrategic environment, and also domestically a lot has happened in Turkey since the turn of the 20th century. And as a result of those changes, I think Turkey's threat perceptions have changed. Due to the European Union reform package adopted in 2003, the Turkish military lost its power and role both in domestic politics and in foreign policy. So the security-oriented foreign policy gave way to an approach that stresses soft power. So the Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu's zero problems with the neighbors became the hallmark of the new Turkish foreign policy discourse. And due to the democratization process going on in Turkey, public opinion has become an important factor in foreign policy making. So Turkey boosted its formed alliances with Iran and Syria, its former enemies, and also it cooperated with these countries, with both Syria and Iran, in its fight against the PKK. Turkey officially recognized the KRG, the Kurdish regional government, and invested heavily both in northern Iraq and in Iraq. And there, of course, currently there are some regional developments because of the Arab Spring, but we can talk about that in the Q&A. So within this political and regional setting, I think Turkey could afford to lose Israel. And also, I think Solhi Özermey argues that we really have to, when we talk about Turkey-Israeli relationship, we always talk about the problems in the relationship. But I think, as Solhi Özel argues, we have to look at some regional developments in order to dismiss those arguments, the simplistic arguments about ideology. Until the Mavi Marmara incident in 2010, for example, Turkey and Israel kept high-level contacts. Ankara kept silent when Israel violated Turkish airspace, when Israel bombed Syrian nuclear facilities in 2007. And despite pressure from the Palestinians, Turkey refused to veto Israel's admission to the OECD. So the Mavi Marmara incident was kind of the breaking point in bilateral relationship. And I think the incident was a consequence of the politics of miscalculation on both sides. But I think Turkish reaction would not have changed if there was another party in government. The government reaction to the flotilla incident is quite popular in Turkey. And I also agree with Henri Barkey that the Turkish-Israeli relationship was actually never a bilateral relationship. Instead, Washington has always provided incentive for the alliance, and that's why now the current state of affairs is a really big problem for the Obama administration, especially at a time when the Arab Spring has weakened American hand in the region. The Arab Spring has changed the geostrategic environment in the region. Turkey's approach to the uprisings in Syria, for example, became the first blow to Turkey's alliance with Iran. And Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan's Arab Spring tour to Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia, and the support that he has given to secularism. He actually, in that tour, he urged the Arab governments to adopt secularism in their new constitutions. So this heightened the tension between Iran and Turkey. And finally, when Turkey announced that it would host the U.S. radars on its soil within the framework of the NATO anti-defense shield, Turkey-Iran relations entered a new era. And now Turkey is suspicious that Iran might pull the PKK card again against Turkey, as it did in the 1990s. And Iran, on the other hand, accuses Turkey of acting in line with the goals of the United States. So there is a different region at the moment, and especially domestically too. Right now, in the face of increasing and intensifying PKK attacks in Turkey, Turkey is trying to Turkey is now seeking Iraqi alliance in its fight against the PKK. So we now face a completely different environment where Turkey tries to counterbalance Iran and Syria. And I think the Arab Spring exposed the diverging interests of Turkey, Iran, and Syria. And this might mean improving relations or closer relations with Iraq. And also it might mean improving relations with Israel, as we did in the 1990s. So Turkey, I think, at the moment sees the region through the lens of the PKK, and this will have important consequences for the balance of power and for Turkey's relationship with Israel. Thank you.
Well, I'll be happy to moderate the discussion, comments, questions that you may have. I just did want to throw in a couple of thoughts myself. I think we want to be careful to not assume that we've gone from, the glory days of a romantic, perfect relationship to absolute, total rupture, that what we're seeing is cycles of this relationship that has actually existed for many decades. And I appreciated Gönül's last comment that, the wheel may turn again. You don't know whether these countries will again see their interests as aligned or overlapping. And I do not think it's necessarily a permanent rupture or a divergence of interest. There will be circumstances in the region that could draw these two countries closer together again. But for me, one of the Bill's references to the book of how critical it was that the champion of the relationship in its best days was the Turkish military, and that power relationship has shifted. So if there were to be a resumption of a more robust and happy Turkish-Israeli relationship, it would require that larger other constituencies get on board. And right now, the circumstances are not favorable to, certainly in popular opinion, et cetera, to see this as a necessary or desirable relationship. The other point that comes through to me from the discussion that we've heard is that, one of the asymmetries of power that has shifted so much from how we used to think about this relationship years ago is that Turkey is a rising power that has, expanding its relationships and the intensity of relationships in many, many places. And while Israel is still a very strong actor economically, in so many other ways, Israel is isolated. And so there's the convergence of interests, or the symmetry in their relationship has really undergone some important changes. What I'm going to propose we do is talk either questions and comments for about 25 minutes and allow ourselves enough time to mingle informally, to buy the book. Helena Cobbin, the publisher, of Just World Books is here, and I know that some of you may want to look at this book and some of their other publications and have a chance to chat informally with our speakers and have a nibble that is provided outside. So the floor is open, and I'll be happy to call on people. And if you want to identify yourself and